Ian was really excited, like, yeah, like I'm gonna donate blood. I walked behind him to make sure he wouldn't fall backwards down the stairs. Just deadpan straight, like, I shouldn't have done that. It was awful. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, wherever you are tuning in from. This is the BS Buddies podcast. My name is Joe. That's Ian. Ian, what are we talking about today?
We are going to be talking about needles. Not the dirty kind, though. Unless you want to. Nah, just kidding, just kidding. Talking about needles, fear in needles, any kind of needles, vaccines, tattoo needles, injections. I've had a 6-inch needle in my butt cheek before. That was not fun. Uh,
That's a way
so
to
that's a
start it.
great segue into this. Joe, take it away.
Okay, well, I guess we'll start from the beginning. I had a very bad phobia of needles. So flu shots was always something that would terrify me as a kiddo. So much so to the point where my mom would just pick us up from school and say, "Yeah, this is what we're doing," and then I would have a meltdown. Yeah, that was fun.
That was a fun car ride.
Yeah. But then once I started getting into high school, I should back up a little bit. The reason why I was so afraid of it, there was one time when I was getting a shot, like I felt the needle go in and it felt like it scraped off my bone.
Oh,
And like I was telling my mom about that and I don't think she really believed me and I didn't know it. I'm like maybe it wasn't then. But I think that can happen technically.
if if it's long enough, yeah, it could. I mean,
But
if
yeah,
don't ask me, I'm not a medical expert. I don't know
yeah,
a thing
if
about bones or blood.
if you came here for medical advice, I have to ask you tell you this is not the correct podcast for you. I recommend Dr. Mike. Just as putting it out there. Anyway, moving on. Then once got into high school, uh, then uh, I was getting like blood tests, like thyroid stuff, and then I'm like, oh no, here we go. And then like getting really anxious, and then after the first time, I'm like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, and
Hmm.
then I will explain later as how I really grew out of it. But I will pass it off to Ian, who's also got some stories.
I have, excuse me, apparently I have something stuck in my throat. No, I have a very interesting distaste for needles because, like vaccines, shots, tattoos, even, I can do all of those A-OK. The little thing where the end of your finger and then they do the blood test and all that nonsense, I can even do that A-OK. In fact, I prefer that because the one thing I cannot do for the life of me is blood draws. And I'm not entirely sure where it started. I know I've never been like fond of blood draws, but I think the moment I would pinpoint where I decided, nope, I hate blood draws of any and all sorts was 10th or 11th grade. One of those two.
I was there for this.
It was not fun at all. For a solid reference for our listeners out there, I am 6 foot tall and 160 pounds. 165 soaking wet. All right, I'm a beanpole. A strong breeze might push me over. At this time in high school, I was, I think, still 6 foot, but I was about 149 pounds, 145 pounds, so to be even smaller, even smaller. And the Red Cross came to the school because they're doing blood
They
draws,
do
and
that every year, and I
I
stayed
have
away from that.
I have the super delicious blood that the Red Cross really likes that they want you to really donate. I'm not going to say anything more than that. If you know, you know. So I went to go donate, do my part, be generous, be good. And I go down there, they prick my finger, do the little blood fingerprint. I sign my name on the dotted line, sold my soul, and then they put me in the chair. And the doctor brings out, God, I don't know what the heck. It's like a 4 gauge needle or 8 gauge needle. I don't know what. I know they're measured in gauges. I don't know how the sizes work. All I know is
I
that it was a fat ass needle that he brought out, and or at least to me, it looked like it was like the head of a pencil thick. It doesn't seem very
that
thick, but when that sucker's going in your arm, yeah, you feel that.
Now I really don't want to donate blood now that you're giving me this great picture in my head. I have yet to
I'm
donate blood, by the way.
I'm so glad. Well, anyways, I've got veins right on the surface, so the nurse had no problem finding the vein, and he put that sucker right in there, and I feel it go in, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
shush, I'm sitting there, I'm like chewing on my hood because I'm just trying to suffer through it. I'm like, okay, this is uncomfortable on my arm, but it's for a good cause, so like, I'll just kind of like sit here and let it happen. Well, you know how okay, you, Joe, don't know, but for our listeners, for anyone out there who's donated blood, you know how when the needle goes in, you're supposed to be able to watch the blood, and like
Hey,
right into the bag?
I donate plasma, so I do know what that
Yeah,
is. Just
you can
I
watch it go through
understand.
the line and then plunk
I
right into the bag.
understand, you ignorant fool.
It fills at like if you turn the tap on ever so slowly, right? It just kind of like goes up and up and up. My blood does not do that. So I don't know if it's some sort of autoimmune response or what, but my blood pressure bottoms out whenever I get jabbed, and I don't even know if I watched the line or the tube that had my blood in it. I had one of my good friends was with me at the time. He was my distractor buddy.
Oh
Joe,
yeah,
I'll tell you who it is afterwards.
I forgot that they did that.
Yeah, they had your blood buddy with you. And so yeah, so he's with me. He's trying to keep me distracted, and he says watching that stuff go through the line was like like it would go forward a little bit and then shoot back. It was like forward 2 steps, back 1 step. It was slow. And where this backfired on me is because I was getting so psyched up in my head before they did anything. I was trying to calm myself, just woosah and everything, but it was not working. And I could feel my heart racing, my blood pressure is rising. And then he sticks me with the needle. My blood pressure bottomed out. And after probably about 2 to 5 minutes being hooked up, I just felt horrible. I had this wicked nauseous. I felt ice cold, but I was sweating. And I had black was creeping at the edge of my vision. It sounded
Uh,
the sound was like someone had two big popcorn tubs over my ears. Everything was just far away and echoey. And I looked at my buddy and I was like, dude, you gotta go get the nurse. And he's like, oh, okay, okay, okay. He went over and got the nurse, and the nurse comes back and he's like, oh, let's see how you're doing over here. Oh my God, you're white as paper. And he yanks that thing out. And he was like, yeah, you were probably about 2 seconds from passing out. So they let me get all the way up to the verge of passing out. And then I had to come all the way back down from that. And I remember getting off that table just shaking so bad. And they sent me over and they got me fruit snacks and I popped them in. And I remember they told me, they're like, oh, you should wait a couple minutes before you go get fruit snacks. And I was like, I want fruit snacks now. And I staggered my way over to the table and I grabbed like 3 fruit snack bags and I just sat down and I ate all of them in about 30 seconds. And I waited 15 minutes for my head to stop feeling like it was on a merry-go-round. So I think that was my defining moment where I was like, I don't really much care for blood draws, and I don't think my body does either. And I've not given blood since that day, so I don't know if it would go any better or not. I highly doubt it, but that's the story of why I do not like big needles.
and now here's where I jump in. Because, like I said when we started this story, I was there. I wasn't in the blood area at all. Absolutely not. Like I said, skipping that. I got to deal with Ian afterwards. Um, what I
Same here.
remember from that day, Ian was really excited. Like, yeah, like I'm gonna donate blood. I might even try and do 2 pints. Like he seemed excited, and we're like, okay, okay. And
I was
then
a fool.
we got we got him back, and it's like you don't look good at all.
I
And
don't feel good.
and in the high school we went to, we had 2 big staircases. I remember Ian had to go up to his locker, and I walked behind him to make sure he wouldn't fall backwards down the stairs.
It was a
And
really bad time.
and then I think you were coming over because I think that's around the time we were recording our improv videos. By the way, My channel link is down below, and you can go check those out if you really want to.
Please
Um,
don't. I was an idiot.
but I remember I was driving wherever, and you're like, just deadpan straight, like, I shouldn't have done that. That was awful.
I shouldn't have done that. That was terrible. I'll tell you that I've never regretted an action so much. Like I was so excited to go give blood. I thought, ah, here am I. I'm gonna be a good person. I'm gonna give blood. And then it went so south on me so fast, and I have never regretted anything more. Oh.
So
However, in the days since then, Joe, I was gonna ask you, have you not overcame, but your distaste for needles has lessened? I take it.
it's lessened quite a bit. So I think so. There's two things that I wanted to do pretty bad for a while, and they both involved needles. I'm like, I I just gotta get through it. I gotta
Drugs and
get
tattoos. Good choice. Good choice.
not that first one, but the second one, yes. So one, I wanted to get tattoos. If you're not a fan of needles, that's kind of an issue.
Hmm.
So had to get over that. Two, I wanted to donate plasma because it's a decent paycheck for you sitting on your phone for an hour.
Ooh,
Also involving needles to more of that blood draw extent. So I'm like,
not
well,
ooh.
well. So once I graduated high school, so I'm 18. It took me about 4 years, 4 or 5 years to get over it and actually commit.
Oh, there you go.
So
That's not bad.
I think the
Oh,
first, I can't remember if I donated plasma first or I got a tattoo first. Um, Part of me thinks that I donated plasma first. I think I did that first. So then
I
I
was gonna
could get
say.
money to get a tattoo.
I was gonna say you probably donated plasma first because usually whenever you go in to donate of any kind, they're like, "Hey, have you gotten a tattoo within the last like 6 to 12 months?" And if you answer yes, then I think they wait because they
So
want to make sure you're not getting like ink poisoning or something.
so I'm just gonna put this out there. I go through BioLife. Um, I got some relatives who have worked there. So it's kind of like go there or don't talk to us. um,
And yeah, that's good motivator.
but I mean, I haven't really had many issues. Their wait time is 4 months. So if you want to go to BioLife, but you have a tattoo or you get a piercing, it's a 4 month wait in between. So I believe I started donating and then got the tattoo. Had to wait the 4 months because I believe I donated like within a week of that 4 months. Like they're like,
Yeah, right
when
there.
when did you get a tattoo? I'm like, oh, 4 months ago. And they're like, okay. Um, which
What's the day? What's the date?
yeah, it's. I think I timed it like I gotta wait 4 months, and I'm gonna go on this week. Um, which I'm gonna put out there. Ian and I will be talking about tattoos more in detail in a separate episode. We're just gonna skim through it. So I'll just talk about the tattoo first, and then you can talk about your tattoo. Uh, so with mine, I knew I was getting it in more of a muscly sort of spot, so it wasn't gonna hurt a ton. Um, but yeah, it's different. It does hurt at times, uh, but as you go through it, it just kind of feels numbing and like a harsh vibration on your skin. And
Hmm.
then once they start doing detailing, that's when it can get a little painful. It's definitely not the most painful thing. I've not even close to what I thought
No.
it was going to
I
be.
mean, granted, there are certain areas that hurt a lot, like bone. Any tattoo on like ribs on your side on your rib cage, anywhere that's real close to bone is gonna hurt like a mother. I'll tell you that much at least.
So, My tattoo got done really quick. The guy has been in the business for years, so he's like, mine took like 40 minutes, and he's like, "Yep, you're good." Which,
Okay.
when I talk to friends, they're like, "Yeah, I was in for my tattoo for 2 or 3 hours." I'm like, "Yeah, my only one so far, 40 minutes, and done." Um, but yeah, it was painful, but definitely not as bad as I thought. I do want to go back and get more once can get some things sorted out. But Ian,
Oh
your
boy.
tattoo
My
experience,
my story
because
is
yours is like right on the bone.
yeah, yeah. So I'm not gonna, show anyone, not gonna give anyone the old nip show here, but my tattoo is on my chest, on the left side, not on the nipple, because
I can
I.
show you mine. Mine's on forearm. I'll show it in more detail when we talk about tattoos.
So mine, I got overseas when I was on a deployment program with my unit when I was still in the military. And we went over there, and I'd wanted to get a tattoo for quite a while. Wasn't sure what I wanted. Finally, I just went through some stuff, picked out one. It's like, okay, this is what I just went with a nice simple outline. For anyone who is curious, who would like to know, it is the Kid Icarus album art from Led Zeppelin. You just look up Led Zeppelin Kid Icarus
I'll
album,
look it up.
and
Well,
it'll show
here you
you.
go.
And then I got the four symbols of the band members above it because I'm a big fan of Led Zeppelin. Like I said in the other episode, I'm a huge nerd. So I was wondering what shop to go to because there's a couple different tattoo shops over in Okinawa, which is where I was. And I got some recommendations from some friends to go try this shop that was out the base down the road. So I went out the base down the road. Yep,
That's a logo.
that's
You
it.
probably can recognize it.
Yep, got that one. And I went down, and my tattoo.
Oh, jeez. I even heard that.
Rude. Apparently, they don't know some people are busy this time of night. I tell you, people in this town. Anyways, I go in there, and the guy running the shop is a Japanese man. I should say Okinawan native. I don't know if he was Japanese. I know they prefer that distinction. Super nice dude. Hardly spoke a lick of English. Like walking into this place was literally, I went in there and I was like, yeah, tattoo appointment. He's like, you tattoo? Uh, yeah, me tattoo. And he's like, what do you want? And boop, 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 pull up the picture, show it to him. He's like, you send me, and I like airdrop to him, and he like prints it out, and he holds it up to my chest. He's like, yeah, you good? Yeah, yeah, that'll work, man. Okay, yeah, sure. And he's like, okay. And he looks at his little calendar. I can't speak words.
Oh, well.
Calendar, and he marks it down. And he goes, 18, you, 18, 2, and like 2 o'clock on the 18th. I'm like, cool. And so I go back. This is where things get a little interesting as a bit of a side note in the story. So as we approach the date of my tattoo, I learn about 3 days out from my tattoo. My tattoo is on a Sunday. That very next Monday, I have to go do the Helo Dunker, which, for anyone who is unaware, the Helo Dunker is training in the military that you have to go through if you're going to ride on a helicopter. If that helicopter crashes in the water, you have to know how to get out of that helicopter.
Jeez.
And they put you in a big like helicopter fuselage, and then boom, they drop it in a pool. And for anyone who has tattoos and knows tattoos, you are not supposed to get that thing wet. Like, even as you know, when you
Yep.
shower, you have to keep the plastic on it for roughly like 2 weeks ish and keep it
Depends.
moisturized because you don't want it to peel.
I'll talk about mine more. I had a different experience.
So yeah, so not only I went and I got the tattoo, and he was a great dude, right? I didn't hardly talk to him the whole time because, like I said, dude didn't speak a lick of English, and it was pretty much it didn't hurt too bad, honestly. If I could compare it to something, I would say grab a thumbtack and just kind of drag a thumbtack across your skin, at like medium pressure, not enough that you would like draw blood, but like enough to leave a mark. That's what it feels like until he got to my sternum, and because the wing goes down my sternum, it curves down like that. It's like a solid 3-inch piece on my sternum where the wing goes down. And as he thank God he saved that part for last, because then he could just kind of go and make like multiple quick passes on it. Oh my God! By the end of that, I thought he had a hacksaw on my chest, and he was just, and I was like, my God, please make it stop. But once everything was all said and done, it looked real cool, yada yada. I went back and back to the barracks. I saw my boys, and I was like, "I got my tattoo." And they're like, "All right, you ready for the Helo Dunker tomorrow?" And I was like, "No, not at all." And then they all took turns slapping my chest to make it hurt because they suck like that. And then I went and I did the Helo Dunker the next day. But thankfully, I have really elastic skin for some reason, which I think helped a lot. And I didn't get really any line bleed. It actually held together very well, even now. God, 4, 5 years later now. Jesus, I feel old. But yeah, it's actually held together very well. So I got very lucky in that regard, and that is my overseas tattoo story. I do plan eventually on getting more. I don't know, at some point. I really need to come up with a design that I want, figure out what I would like to have and where I'd like to have it. But that's that's my tattoo story, baby. Yeah.
Solid. I will switch it back to other types of needles and talk about, because I kind of brushed over it when talking about tattoos. Donating plasma was the last, I mean, I won't say the last big hurdle because blood donation is the final hurdle if I do want to pursue it. But plasma donation is, it's good enough for me for a while.
And that's all. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Don't need to be doing anything too extravagant.
Nope. I'm comfortable with donating plasma now. I don't need to go further right now. Uh, so whoever, if you've never donated plasma, you walk in, you check in on the computer, wait in line, you get your finger pricked, which I've had. I think I've had almost every one of my fingers pricked, at least just one of each kind. And for me, ring finger is the way to go. Like with my, oddly enough, getting my pinky pricked one time hurt for like 3 days. Whenever I grab something, like
Mm,
it always
yep.
hurt, but with my ring fingers, I have next to zero issues. Anyways, so you get pricked with the needle right away before you get the needle stuck in you. Which like Ian, I also have really good veins that BioLife has told me, which is really nice to hear because it makes it super easy.
I will
Um,
say this: the way they say it is like super freaky. Like when they're like, "Oh my God, you have such good veins." You're like, "Yeah, they're mine. You can't fucking have them. Get away from me." Can I get a different nurse, please? And then the rest of them come over. Wow, you have such good veins. Like, I don't want to be here anymore.
it's so true though, because it's like, hey, come over here. Look at this guy's veins. Like, they're
Yeah.
beautiful.
Ugh, it's freaky.
And I've also donated enough to where like I have marks. So like a lot of the times they don't, because they use some kind of tool to like kind of mark where it is. Like they indent it, but most of the time they're just like they don't try super hard because my veins don't really move. Like there's only been like 2 times where they've had to make new holes because my vein moved those certain days. So the more you get the needle in your vein, the easier it is just to keep donating because it doesn't hurt as bad because it's easy. I probably explained that very poorly, but oh well, I'm gonna continue. Uh,
That's fine.
so for the most part, I've had good experience, but there have been a few times where it hasn't been so good. Excuse me.
Gesundheit.
So I think the first time something like this happened was in the first couple months that I donated. They put the needle in, but they didn't put it in quite right. And this was the worst experience I've had with this. They kind of like fished it back and forth to like
Ugh.
correct it. And to top
Uh,
it off, they're like, yeah, we can't use this vein anymore today. We're going to have to use the other one. So not only did it not work and felt disgusting, a needle, like I could feel the needle going around in my vein, which was the worst part.
oh God, no.
They had to
Okay.
re-stick me, and I had to trust that they were going to do it right this time. Um,
That's
another ex-
always fun.
another experience I had actually happened last week. It wasn't nearly as bad, but um, it was partially comical. I'll say that. Lady who was helping me, the phlebotomist. Well, one, like I try and bring a book in with me, and she's like, "Oh, what's this book you have?" And I'm like, "Oh, this. Is it this kind of book?" Yeah. Tell me one thing you've learned about this book. And if you don't know me, I am an introvert. I don't like really talking to other people, especially in this setting when I have 5 people sitting in this little area, 6 people behind me, 6 people to my left. I don't want to talk about what I'm learning in my book that I'm reading.
I just want to come in, do my business, and leave.
Uh, so she comes over, and I was, and this is a good example of like watching it go through the tube because sometimes you have to, like, the machine is whatever arm you have the needle in, you want next to the machine, but you don't always get that. So,
Mm.
like this time, I had I wanted to do my right arm. I like to switch back and forth. The machine was on my left, so they have to run the little tube over yourself. So if you don't like looking at your blood, well, that's too bad. So have the needle in my arm, and the tube's coming down, and it's just across my waist. Watching my blood go into the machine. Yeah, it's great.
Mhm.
If you're queasy around blood, this is probably where you've already clicked off.
Mm.
But I've gotten used to it. But she put it in, then she put it in a little more, and she took it out a little more, and then I think she put it in a little more. She's like, "I'm gonna go grab someone." Leaves me with the needle in my arm, not the tube, not in, just the needle, and I'm just sitting there
Ah,
waiting and watching her go around and try and find someone to fix it. And then the manager came over and like just pulled it out a little and said, "You're good."
yeah, that's
And
at the point I would have started yelling. I'd have been like, "Hey, get somebody over here who's competent." No, I don't play with needles. I'm sorry. I don't care about the nurse's feelings in that moment. If you're gonna sit there going and play slide whistle with the needle in my arm, nah, fam. I'm getting somebody over there pronto.
then I got one more that I can think of, and then Ian, if you got anything else, you can finish it off. Uh, this happened a couple months ago, and the phlebotomist was super sweet, so like I don't blame him at all. And it was kind of an emergency situation, not with me. I was good. So they have a blood pressure cuff, so yeah, it's blood. And she was, so they tighten it up and they mark it, they untighten it, then they clean the area, then they tighten it, and then put the needle in, and you can start pumping. So she was in the middle of that process, and she tightened it, marked me, and then someone like diagonal from me like was feeling nauseous, so they had to shut the machine off. She went over to help, and someone else came over to help and got him what he needed. Um, Problem was, uh, my my blood pressure cuff, she didn't shut it off. It kept tightening. And I'm not, like I said, I'm an introvert. Like some people, like if your food order is wrong and you're the type of person to not complain, this was me not complaining. My entire arm went numb and tingly. She comes back and she's like, "Okay, let me tighten you up." I'm like, "Actually, it hasn't stopped." She's like, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Why didn't you tell me?" I'm like, he
I'm
had other you had other issues going on. It's
I'm
like
fine. I can live.
someone
I
might
can't feel my arm.
someone might be sick over there, And you're trying to take care of him. I can deal with the needle tingling sensation in my entire arm for a couple minutes. But yeah, she felt really bad, but I'm like, like once she took it off, once it stopped tightening, I'm like, okay, um,
Mm.
just shaking
Oh,
my arm off, and then it was fine. But yeah, those are the three big
oh God, no! Screw
experiences
that
I had.
other dude. He can projectile vomit everywhere for all I care. Get that thing off my arm. That's another thing I hate. I do not like the blood pressure and the tightening stuff. And they wrap the little band around their arm. And you're like,
Oh,
okay, squeeze the stress ball. Oh, I can't stand that either. I don't know why. I hate the feeling of it in my arm. It's terrible.
oh, they don't even like they just have the blood pressure cuff and nothing else.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not that terrible, but yeah, that was a trooper that day.
Yeah. See, I'm weird because I can't do any of that stuff. Ironically, one of the needle experiences that you would think most people would not want to have is the one I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, that 6-inch needle in your butt cheek. Oh,
Go
it's a nice
forward, Marie.
nice segue into this here. Yeah. So, um, for those who are unaware, when you join the military, right, you go through your recruit processing and all that stuff. But what they don't tell you is when you actually get to wherever you're going to be doing your basic training, your boot camp, is the first like week roughly is nothing but medical evaluations, inspections, because they want to make sure that you're actually healthy enough to go through and do this. And the other thing that they have to do is a whole bunch of immunizations and injections and other things because you're bringing in people from all around the country, all different parts. Everybody's carrying different strains of junk and crud, and everyone's going to be getting sick. And Marine Corps refers to this as recruit crud. It's just like an amalgamation of like a super cold flu, tetanus, mega
Everything balled up in one nice
conglomeration.
package.
Yeah. So what they do is, they take you through and they give you a whole bunch of immunizations and whatnot for it. And funny enough, my recruiter was telling me about this. And there's one shot in particular that is known as the peanut butter shot. It's a penicillin shot. And yeah, no joke, the needle is about this long. And it goes directly into one of your buttocks. Pick a cheek, and they have you put your hands. It's kind of funny when you're rotating through this station because like they're processing literally hundreds of recruits at a time, so like you'll have like 50 to 70 kids sitting outside in a bench, and then you'll just see the end of this line that slowly shuffles into a building, and then it shuffles out the other end, and you walk into that building and it's nothing but rows of tables. Some of the tables are simple as you walk up and the doc goes, roll your sleeve up, and you go whoop, and he goes, all right, next down the line. Some of them are like the peanut butter shot, which I'll explain why it's called the peanut butter shot here in a minute, is you go up to this wall and they have handprints on the wall. Like the military is very cut and dry by the numbers. There is no doing this your own way. It's my way or the highway. So they have handprints on the wall and there is but one single footprint on the floor. And you're a little confused. You're thinking, why is there only one footprint on the floor? So you stand your 1 foot on that, you put your hands up on the wall, and they're like, okay, now cross your right foot over your left ankle and you let it dangle. And the reason they do this is so that you don't tense up when they're putting the shot in. They go, okay, deep breath, and you go, and then right into the cheek they go, and then they. And the reason it's called the peanut butter shot is because when they do that, it creates a lump in your cheek that feels like you have a big old glob of peanut butter in there. Funny enough, they tell you once you get out of that whole rotation, they're like, when you're sitting down, rock side to side so that you can dislodge all that gunk in there and it spreads out. I
Oh,
couldn't I couldn't poop right for 3 days. Like I had to sit sideways on a toilet because it hurts so bad. It feels like somebody gave you like 50 Charlie horses in the same spot. And even though my recruiter was explaining all of this to me, the one thing I was still most concerned about, you guessed it, was the blood draw. And funny enough, I still did worse on the blood draw. I went through the peanut butter shot like a breeze. I was like, "Ooh, okay, that's got a sting to it, but that's not so bad. I can live with that." The blood draw, they even used a butterfly needle for anyone who wants to know, a butterfly needle is the thinnest needle they have. It's probably about the size of like a lead from a mechanical pencil. It's tiny. It's very little, and it hardly feels like a bee sting when it goes in. And they maybe only took a little tiny vial of blood, but when they got done with it, my face was pure white. And yeah, let's just say my drill instructor was not very happy with me. I couldn't even control it, but they made me sit down, drink water, and then yeah, they made me do probably like 200 push-ups because I didn't like having my blood drawn. So that was a lot of fun. I definitely appreciated that. But that is the extent of my needle stories. I hate saying it like that. Why did I say it like that?
Well,
So that's what I've got on my end. So Joe, do you have any last words before we do quotes and all that fun stuff?
I could probably think of some more, but I'm kind of done talking about needles. Like we said at the beginning, neither one of us like needles in the slightest, but
Not a
I've
fan.
gotten more comfortable with them over the years. Um, and now it
Oh,
is time for quotes.
you first.
Uh,
Or do you
do you,
or do you need me to go first? I got one lined up.
okay, I got one. There is nothing permanent except change.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I got one that is we never realize just how many other lives we can help when their paths cross our own.
It's a solid way to end it. So
Thank you.
donate blood
Yeah, don't if you can, and
if
don't
you can.
pass out like I did. Don't get the peanut butter shot. Don't get the peanut butter
If
shot.
you can help
If,
it, don't get it.
yeah, if you can help it, don't get it.
But
But
thank you
as always,
guys.
oh, go for
Oh, okay.
it.
Uh,
We were both gonna do an outro at the same time.
thank you guys for BSing with us. Uh, we will see you next time when I try and not interrupt Ian. Um,
That happens
uh,
all the time. It's fine.
so follow or subscribe down below and become a bud today, and we will see you next time.
After you've donated plasma, blood.
And then you get money.
Take her easy now.